My foster brother destroyed my violin during my solo performance, screaming, "You don't deserve this," and stole my college fund for getting a scholarship. When I begged my dad to help, he said, "Don't display achievements where Danny can see them," and later snapped, "If you want what's best for your brother, you'd help him heal." I didn't say a word. That was 6 years ago. This graduation day, he stood on my lawn screaming that I'd traumatized Danny all over again. In my family, we were taught that love meant watching my foster brother Danny destroy my achievements while screaming, "You don't deserve this," and then forgiving him without an apology. You see, my brother Danny is now 22, and we took him in when he was 14 from the foster system. When I was 15 and Danny had just joined our family, I won first chair violin in regional orchestra. I wanted him to be my best friend, so he was the first person I told. His immediate response was to grab my violin and smash it against the wall during my solo performance rehearsal. "You don't deserve this" echoed through the school auditorium before he collapsed to the floor crying. As my music teacher stared at me, Danny curled into a ball, sobbing. She reminded me that it was all my fault. Don't display achievements where Danny can see them. This set the tone for the next 6 years of my life. It wasn't until one perfect afternoon last spring that the tone was broken, because that's when I got the Juilliard acceptance letter with full scholarship. A lifetime of practicing scales, dealing with performance anxiety, crying over broken sheet music all led up to that one moment. I called friends, posted the acceptance, and looked at New York apartments. I was just Emma, not Danny's trigger. Not the family sacrifice, just a future music teacher planning her escape until my dad came home and found me celebrating. "This is wonderful. We need to plan how to make this work." He smiled like he was saying something nice, but his eyes said otherwise. And after an hour of fake niceness, the truth leaked out. "Of course Danny will need to come with you. New York has excellent trauma programs and he can't handle you leaving. I'll help with rent if you get a 2-bedroom. Danny in my apartment with access to my instruments, my practice materials, my future. Dad, you know what happens when he sees me doing well? He hasn't had an episode in months." He lied, as if Danny hadn't destroyed my music theory books last week. "If you want what's best for your brother, you'd help him heal." The thing about Danny's past is that Dad told me the story constantly. Danny was the scapegoat in his last foster family. Nothing violent, just 1,000 small cruelties, no birthday presents while the bio son got parties, hand-me-downs while the other boy got new clothes, school concerts ignored while bio son got celebrated. "You don't deserve nice things" became their catchphrase. Now Danny was making it mine. He was stronger, angrier, and more damaged than me, but even he had an Achilles heel, and that was his predictability. 5 minutes of staring meant destruction was coming. 10 minutes meant total annihilation. Hide anything that matters. Never celebrate where he can see. But music school can't hide 4 years of achievement. I remember being 17 when Danny found my acceptance letters to other schools before Juilliard. I didn't find out until I was sitting at the kitchen table, because that's when I noticed a faint chemical smell in my food. I knew from the bitter taste that it was bleach. "What the hell, you psycho," I exclaimed, pushing my plate away from Danny. Danny just laughed like it was funny while my dad lectured me about how I shouldn't brag and the importance of being humble. That was the moment I realized my father wasn't denying the pattern. He was protecting it. I told Dad no, that Danny wasn't allowed anywhere near my dorm, but he could visit New York FaceTime me all the time, and I'd come home for holidays. I even offered to research trauma programs near home. "Then I'm not helping with any school expenses," Dad snapped. "Fine, I'll work more hours and take out loans," I responded with determination. The next 2 months were a living hell. Dad called relatives saying I was abandoning my traumatized brother. He brought Danny to my music store job to practice separation. Danny stared at my employee name tag for 5 minutes before knocking over an entire display of sheet music. "You don't deserve this." My manager asked them not to return. Fast forward to the week before my Juilliard orientation. My aunt called me. "Your father bought plane tickets." She says, "You can't exclude Danny from family milestones. He's been staring at your acceptance letter photo online for days." I knew what that meant. Dad had spent 6 years making sure I understood that Danny's trauma mattered more than my future. Every destroyed achievement had a matching excuse about foster care, but I wasn't a scared, people-pleasing 15-year-old girl anymore. I was a woman who knew my worth, and I was ready to bite back. So I started planning my escape from their manipulation. First thing I did was change the orientation location on all my social media, posted about how they moved it to a different building on campus. Then I called the school and explained my situation. The security coordinator, Marcus, was super understanding. He said he'd keep an eye out for anyone matching their description. I also asked my roommate Lisa to be my lookout. She knew the whole Danny situation already from our phone conversations. The morning of orientation, I woke up at 5 a.m. Couldn't sleep anyway from nerves. I grabbed my violin from its hiding spot in Lisa's closet. Yeah, I've been hiding it there for weeks. Learned my lesson about keeping important stuff in my own room after Danny destroyed my last one. I got dressed in the bathroom with the door locked. Even put a chair against it. Paranoid maybe, but you try living with someone who poisoned your food. Lisa drove me to campus early. We took her car because mine was too recognizable. I kept checking my phone. Dad had texted 15 times already. All variations of "Where are you?" and "Danny is so excited to support you." Support right. Like that time he supported my recital by cutting all my violin strings the night before. We parked in a different lot than usual. I walked into the building through the back entrance. Marcus was there like he promised. He gave me a thumbs up. No sign of them yet. I went to the orientation room where all the other students were getting ready. Everyone was tuning instruments and comparing schedules. Normal stuff. I just sat in the corner watching the door. My friend Alex came over and asked if I was okay. I told him I was just nervous. Didn't mention that my crazy foster brother might show up and destroy everything. He wouldn't understand anyway. His biggest family drama was his mom missing his piano competitions. Must be nice to have normal, supportive parents. About 30 minutes before orientation, my phone started blowing up. Dad again, this time with photos. Pictures of him and Danny at the wrong building. The one I'd posted about online. They were standing outside looking confused. Danny was wearing this formal shirt like he was going to church or something. Dad's text got angrier. "Where are you? This isn't funny. Answer your phone now." I turned off my phone completely. Lisa texted me from her spot in the lobby. All clear so far. The orientation coordinator started calling us to gather. We lined up by instrument groups. I was with the violin section. Good. Harder to spot in a crowd of similar musicians. We started walking toward the recital hall. My hands were shaking, not from stage fright, from waiting for that familiar screech of, "You don't deserve this." The recital hall was packed. Parents everywhere with cameras and flowers. I scanned the crowd as we walked in. Didn't see them. Maybe my plan actually worked. We took our seats with our instrument sections. The dean started his speech about dedication and musical excellence. I was barely listening, just kept watching the doors for any sign of Dad and Danny bursting in to ruin everything. Then I saw him. Not Danny. Dad. He was at the back entrance arguing with security. His face was red with frustration. He was pointing at the stage at me. But Marcus wasn't letting him in. He didn't have a ticket. See, I'd conveniently forgotten to mention that orientation was ticket only for family members. Oops, my mistake. The dean called my name for the scholarship recognition. I stood up and walked across the stage, accepted my certificate, smiled for the official photo. And for the first time in 6 years, I celebrated an achievement without fear. No smashed instruments, no destroyed sheet music, no poison in my food. Just me with my scholarship starting my future. After orientation, I met Lisa outside. She was grinning like crazy. Told me Dad and Danny had shown up right after I got my certificate. Danny had apparently tried to rush the stage, but security stopped him at the door. The same security that had kept Dad out. Dad made a scene about discrimination and trauma. Other parents started staring. They left before campus police showed up. I checked my phone on the drive back to Lisa's apartment. 52 missed calls, 150 plus texts. The last one from Dad was simple. "Come home immediately. We need to talk about your behavior." My behavior. Not Danny trying to ruin my orientation. Not him attempting to poison me. My behavior for protecting myself. I didn't go home. Went to Alex's apartment instead. His roommates were having a welcome party. I brought my violin and played for hours. Took a million photos. Posted them all over social media, every single one, because for once I wasn't going to hide my success. I wasn't going to dim my musical light so Danny wouldn't feel triggered. The party lasted until 3 a.m. I crashed on Alex's couch, woke up to more angry texts this time from my stepmom. She usually stayed out of Dad and Danny's drama, but apparently Dad had worked her up. Her message was all about family loyalty and understanding trauma. Same script, different messenger. I knew I had to go home eventually. My stuff was there, my car, my whole life really, but I also knew things had changed. I'd stood up to them, hidden from them, outsmarted them, and the world hadn't ended. Danny hadn't spontaneously combusted from not destroying my achievement. Dad hadn't disowned me yet. Lisa picked me up around noon. We drove past my house first just to scope it out. Dad's car was in the driveway, so was Danny's bike. The curtains were drawn, looked normal from the outside, but I knew better. Inside was probably a war zone of Dad's guilt trips and Danny's rage about missing my orientation. We parked down the street. I texted my stepmom that I was coming home, figured she was the safer option than Dad. She responded immediately, said Dad was at work, Danny was in his room. Coast was clear for now. I made Lisa come with me for safety and numbers and all that. The house was quiet when we walked in. Too quiet. Stepmom was in the kitchen looking tired. She started to lecture me about family responsibility. I cut her off. Told her I was just there to pack some things. Her face fell. Asked if I was serious about moving out. I said yes. I went to my room with Lisa. Started throwing clothes in a suitcase. Grabbed my laptop chargers, important documents. The stuff that mattered. The stuff Danny couldn't replace if he destroyed it. Lisa helped me carry boxes to her car. Stepmom just watched from the doorway. Didn't help. Didn't stop us either. We were almost done when I heard it. The front door slamming. Dad's voice sharp and angry. Then footsteps on the stairs. Fast, purposeful. I knew that sound. Grabbed the last box and headed for the door, but Danny was already there, standing in my doorway, staring at my empty room. His face was blank. That was worse than anger. He looked at me then, at the box in my hands, then back at my room. The staring had started. I checked my watch, started counting. 1 minute 2. Lisa shifted nervously beside me. She'd heard the stories but never seen it happen live. 3 minutes 4. Danny's hands started shaking. Here it came. But then something weird happened. Instead of screaming, instead of throwing things, Danny just turned around and walked away. Down the hall to his room, slammed the door. Lisa and I exchanged looks. That wasn't normal. Danny always exploded. Always destroyed something. Dad appeared at the top of the stairs. His work clothes were wrinkled, but his face was twisted with rage. He looked at the boxes at my empty room at me. "What do you think you're doing?" I told him I was moving out. Found a place closer to school. Needed to focus on my studies. He laughed. Not a happy laugh. The kind that made my skin crawl. Said I wasn't going anywhere. That family stayed together. That Danny needed me. I pushed past him with my box. Lisa followed close behind. Dad grabbed my arm on the stairs hard. His fingers dug in. Told me I was being selfish. That I was traumatizing Danny all over again. That good daughters didn't abandon family members who needed help. I yanked my arm free, kept walking. Stepmom was still in the kitchen staring at her coffee. Didn't even look up as we passed. Dad followed us outside, listing every sacrifice he'd made. Every time he'd chosen us over himself. Every penny spent on therapy for Danny. We loaded the last box into Lisa's car. Dad stood on the lawn, arms crossed. "If you leave now, don't bother coming back for Christmas." I got in the car. Lisa started the engine. As we pulled away, I saw Danny watching from his bedroom window. Just standing there staring. It gave me chills like he was planning something. Lisa let me crash at her place for a few days. Her roommate Sarah was cool about it. They had a pull-out couch in the living room. Not ideal, but better than home. I spent those days looking for apartments, checking my bank account, doing math on student loans and work schedules. The texts from Dad didn't stop. They got worse. He'd moved from anger to manipulation. Messages about Danny not eating. Danny crying all night. Danny asking why I hated him. Classic dad moves trying to guilt me back home. I stopped reading them after day 2. But then my stepmom started texting. That was new. She usually stayed neutral. Her messages were different. Worried. Said Danny was acting strange. Not his usual strange. Different strange. Quiet. Too quiet. Said he'd been in his room for 3 days straight. I almost caved. Almost drove back to check on him. Lisa talked me out of it. Reminded me this was probably probably another manipulation, that Danny was 22, not 12, that he had parents to take care of him. She was right. I knew she was right. Still felt guilty though. Found an apartment on day 4, studio near campus, tiny but mine. The landlord, Mike, didn't care about my family drama, just wanted first month, last month, and security deposit. I signed the lease that afternoon, finally had my own place. Moving in was easy since I didn't have much. Lisa helped me get the basics. Thrift store furniture, dollar store dishes, Target bedding, nothing fancy. Nothing that would hurt too much if Danny somehow found me and destroyed it all. Old habits die hard. I'd been in my apartment exactly 1 week when Dad showed up. Didn't know how he found me. Probably Lisa's Instagram. She tagged me in a housewarming selfie. Should have been more careful. Dad looked terrible. Bags under his eyes, wrinkled shirt. Very undad-like. He said we needed to talk about Danny, about the family, about everything. I let him in because, well, he was still my dad. He sat on my secondhand couch and just started talking. Told me things I'd never heard before about the foster placement, about Danny's first few months with us. Apparently it was worse than I knew. Danny had tried to run away 4 times, had threatened to hurt himself, had begged to go back to foster care. Dad had hidden all of it from me, wanted me to bond with my new brother without baggage. So much for that plan. Dad said the therapist had warned them, said Danny might fixate on me, might see my achievements as threats, might act out violently. Dad had promised to handle it, to protect both of us. Instead, he'd chosen Danny every time, and stepmom had let him. He apologized, actually said the words, said he should have stepped in years ago, should have protected me too. But Dad was so convinced he could fix Danny, so sure that enough love and understanding would heal him, and he'd wanted to believe it. Then he dropped the real bomb. Danny had found my apartment, had been sitting outside in his car for hours, watching, waiting. He'd followed him here, was trying to talk him into leaving, but Danny wouldn't budge, said he needed to see me, to talk to me, to explain something important. I looked out my window. Sure enough, there was Danny's beat-up Honda parked right across the street. I could see his silhouette in the driver's seat just sitting there staring at my building. My skin crawled. How long had he been there? How many times had I walked past without noticing him watching? Dad wanted me to talk to him, said maybe it would help, maybe Danny needed closure, maybe he wanted to apologize. I laughed. Actually laughed in his face. Danny apologized. In 6 years, he'd never once said sorry. Not for the violin, not for the poison, not for anything. But Dad kept pushing, said something was different this time. That Danny had been acting strange since I left. Not destructive strange, sad strange. Said he'd been going through old photos, writing in a journal, going to therapy without Dad forcing him. I told him no. I was done being Danny's emotional punching bag, done hiding my successes, done living in fear. He could tell Danny that. He could tell everyone that I was done. Dad nodded, looked defeated, said he understood, then he left. I watched from my window as he walked to Danny's car, saw him lean in the window, saw Danny shake his head, saw him try again, more head shaking. Then Dad walked to his own car and drove away, but Danny stayed, still watching, still waiting. I tried to ignore him, made dinner, watched Netflix, did some practicing, but I kept checking the window. He was always there, same position, same car, same stare. It was creeping me out completely. I thought about calling the cops, but what would I say? My foster brother was sitting in his car, not illegal. Around midnight, I gave up trying to sleep, kept imagining him breaking in, finding me asleep, doing who knows what. So I sat by my window watching him watch me, like some weird stakeout standoff, neither of us moving, neither of us backing down. Then I saw him get out of the car. My heart started racing. He was coming for me. I grabbed my phone ready to call 911, but he didn't head for my building. He walked to the corner store instead, came back with a bag, got back in his car, resumed watching. This went on for 3 days. 3 days of Danny in his car, 3 days of me checking windows and locking doors, 3 days of jumping at every noise. Lisa said I was being paranoid, that Danny was probably just processing, that I should call the cops if I was really scared. But I wasn't scared exactly. I was tired. Tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of letting Danny control my life even when he wasn't in it. So on day 4, I did something stupid. I went outside, walked right up to his car, knocked on his window. He rolled it down slowly, looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. He'd been crying. Danny never cried. Not in front of people, not ever. We stared at each other for a long moment. Then he said something that shocked me. I know what I did to you. Not sorry, not an apology, just acknowledgement. I didn't know what to say. So I said nothing, just stood there in the street staring at my foster brother who'd made my life hell for 6 years, waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the screaming to start, for something to fly at my head. Instead, he reached into his bag. I flinched, ready to run, but he just pulled out a notebook, handed it to me through the window. I've been writing it all down, everything I remember, everything I did. Dr. Peterson said it would help. I took the notebook, didn't open it, didn't want to see his list of destructions. He kept talking, said he'd been in therapy twice a week since I left. Real therapy, not the family sessions Dad usually dragged him to. Said he was on new meds, said he was trying. I wanted to laugh or scream or throw the notebook back at him. 6 years of torture and now he was trying. Now that I'd finally escaped. But I just stood there holding his notebook, feeling numb. He wasn't done talking though. Never was when he got started. He told me about the foster family. Not Dad's version, his version. How they'd loved their bio son. How they'd tolerated Danny for the money. How you don't deserve this became the soundtrack to his life. How he'd believed them. Then he said something that hit me hard. When I saw you with that violin, happy and proud and deserving. I couldn't stand it because if you deserved good things, maybe I was the problem. Maybe they were right about me. I found myself sitting on the curb, still holding his notebook, still processing. He got out of the car and sat next to me, not close, a careful distance, like he was afraid I'd run, or maybe afraid he'd hurt me again. We sat there in silence for a while. Then he told me about the past week, how Dad had been calling him constantly, telling him I'd abandoned them, telling him to go get me, to make me come home, to make me understand family. But for the first time, Danny had said no, had hung up on him, had blocked his number. That's why he was here. Not to drag me home, not to destroy my apartment, but to warn me. Dad was planning something, had been talking to relatives, gathering allies, planning an intervention. The whole family was supposed to confront me at graduation, make me see sense, make me come home. He pulled out his phone, showed me the family group chat I'd been removed from. Message after message about ungrateful children, about family obligations, about how I was killing dad with worry, about how Danny needed his sister, Aunt Linda calling me selfish, Cousin Mike saying I'd regret this, Grandma disappointed in my choices, but Danny had defended me, in the chat, in front of everyone, said I deserved to live my own life, said he'd been wrong to hurt me, said dad needed to let me go. The responses were brutal. Now they were turning on him too, calling him ungrateful, saying I'd brainwashed him. I finally opened the notebook, page after page of memories, the violin incident in detail, the destroyed sheet music, the poisoned food, but also things I'd forgotten or never knew, times he'd watched me succeed and felt rage, times he'd planned to hurt me but stopped, times he'd hated himself for hating me. The last entry was from yesterday. Emma deserves everything good. I know that now. I've always known that. I just couldn't feel it before. The meds help, the therapy helps, but mostly watching her leave helped. She's free now. Free from me. Free from dad. Free to be brilliant. I did one thing right. I let her go. I handed back the notebook. Told him I needed time. Needed to think. Needed to process 6 years of pain. He nodded. Said he understood. Said he'd leave me alone. But first he had one more thing to say. About dad. About what was coming. About how to protect myself. Dad had been calling the school, claiming family emergency, trying to get my schedule, trying to find out where I lived. The administration hadn't told him anything, but dad was persistent. He'd also been calling my work, telling them I was having a breakdown, that I needed help, that family was worried. Danny had screenshots, messages where dad discussed tactics, how to force me home, how to make me see I was being selfish, how to use Danny's trauma to guilt me, how to turn the family against me, how to make my life difficult enough that I'd come crawling back. But here's the kicker. Danny had been sabotaging him, deleting messages before dad sent them, giving him wrong information, telling relatives I'd moved to a different city, running interference. My destroyer had become my protector. The world felt upside down. He stood up to leave, said he'd keep warning me if dad escalated, said he'd try to keep him distracted, said he understood if I never wanted to see him again. Then he got in his car and drove away, left me sitting on the curb with 6 years of trauma and one notebook of regrets. I went back inside and called Lisa, told her everything. She came over with wine and tissues. We read through Danny's notebook together, page by page of pain and recognition, of a boy who'd been taught he deserved nothing, turning that lesson on everyone else, of my parents enabling it, of me suffering for it. Lisa asked what I was going to do. About Danny, about dad, about graduation. I didn't know. Part of me wanted to forgive Danny. He was trying. He was changing. He was protecting me now. But 6 years is a long time. And trauma doesn't just disappear with medication and therapy. The next few weeks were quiet. No dad attacks, no family ambushes, just me, school, and my tiny apartment. I threw myself into practicing. Final recital was coming up. I'd always been good at music, at focusing, at shutting everything else out. It's how I'd survived living with Danny. But I kept thinking about his notebook, about him sitting outside for 3 days, about him blocking dad for me. It didn't erase the past, didn't heal the scars, but it meant something. Maybe not forgiveness, maybe not brotherhood, but something. Then graduation week arrived. The family group chat exploded again. Lisa showed me screenshots. Everyone confirming they'd be at graduation. Everyone ready to talk sense into me. Everyone sure they could fix this family crisis. Danny had tried to warn them off, but they'd turned on him completely. Dad texted me directly for the first time in weeks. Sweet as pie. Just wanted his baby girl there for her big day. Just wanted family together. Just wanted to talk. No pressure, no guilt, just love. I knew better. This was his final play. Get me in that auditorium with 20 relatives. Break me down. Bring me home. I texted back that I had to work. Lie, but whatever. He responded immediately. Said he'd checked with my manager. Knew I had the day off. Said lying to family was beneath me. Said dad was disappointed. Said Danny was devastated. Said I was breaking hearts. Then came the threats. If I didn't show up, he'd come to me with the whole family. Do the intervention at my apartment. In front of my neighbors. In front of everyone. I'd be embarrassed into submission. Classic dad. Public shame was his favorite weapon. I panicked. Called Danny without thinking. He answered on the first ring. He's serious, Danny said. I heard him making plans. Aunt Linda is bringing her van. They're going to show up at your place around noon. Make a scene. Force you to listen. I asked why he was helping me. Really asked. Not accusingly. Just curious. He was quiet for a moment, then said something I'll never forget. Because I spent 6 years taking things from you. Maybe it's time I gave something back. We made a plan. Not together exactly, but parallel. He'd go to graduation. Play the dutiful son. Keep them busy. Keep them distracted. Buy me time to disappear for the day. Maybe they'd give up if they couldn't find me. Maybe they'd realize I was serious. Maybe. Graduation morning, I packed a bag and left my apartment at dawn. Went to Lisa's place. Her family was cool with me joining their celebration. Her mom, Sandra, had heard the stories. Said I was welcome anytime. Said family was about choice, not blood. Made me cry a little in a good way. I turned off my phone. Didn't want to see the messages. Didn't want to know when they showed up. Didn't want to feel guilty. Just wanted one peaceful graduation, one normal celebration, one day without drama. Lisa's family gave me that. Brunch and mimosas and congratulations. No screaming, no destruction, no guilt. But I turned my phone on that night. Had to know what happened. 61 missed calls, 120 plus texts, voicemails I'd never listened to. The last text was from Danny. They came. They saw you weren't there. They left. Dad's planning something else. Be careful. The next few days were tense. Waiting for Dad's next move. Jumping every time someone knocked. Checking windows obsessively. Lisa said I was getting paranoid again. But I knew Dad. He didn't give up. He just regrouped. Planned better. Hit harder. Then I got a call from my academic advisor. Someone had called claiming to be me. Said I was dropping out due to family emergency. Needed to withdraw immediately. The advisor was confused. I just graduated with honors. Why would I quit now? I told her it wasn't me. She said she'd figured. Just wanted to warn me. Next was my landlord Mike. Got a call saying I'd violated my lease. That I'd moved my whole family in. That neighbors were complaining. He'd driven by to check. Saw nothing. But wanted me to know someone was trying to get me evicted. I explained about my dad. He said he'd ignore any more calls. Then my my job. Someone called in sick for me 3 shifts in a row. Manager almost fired me. I had to show him the family group chat, explained the whole situation. He gave me another chance, but said one more issue and I was gone. I started recording everything, saving screenshots, building evidence. Danny kept feeding me information. Dad had recruited Aunt Linda as his main ally. They were researching legal options, talking about wellness checks, about forced interventions, about getting me declared mentally incompetent. It was insane. I was a college graduate, but Dad was desperate. I thought about getting a restraining order. Lisa's mom suggested it, but that meant court, meant facing them, meant making it all public and legal. I just wanted to be left alone, to work, to practice, to live. Why was that so hard for them to understand? Then came the letters, not emails, actual letters from every family member, all saying the same things. How I was hurting Dad, how I was abandoning Danny, how I was selfish and cruel and would regret this. Some were handwritten, some typed, all designed to break me down. But Danny's letter was different, hidden inside Aunt Linda's envelope, a sticky note that just said, "Stay strong. You're doing the right thing. I'm proud of you." It was the first time in 6 years he'd expressed pride in me, in anything I'd done. It hit harder than all the guilt combined. I decided enough was enough. Changed my phone number without telling anyone except Lisa and my job. Got a P.O. box for mail, so they couldn't send more letters to my apartment. Even started parking my car in a different lot every day. Yeah, it was exhausting, but it was better than dealing with Dad's escalating crazy. 2 weeks passed without incident. I started to relax a little. Maybe they'd given up. Maybe Dad had found a new project. Maybe Danny had convinced them to back off. I should have known better. Dad was just planning his nuclear option. It was a Tuesday when everything went sideways. I was walking to work when I saw them. Dad's stepmom, Aunt Linda, and 3 cousins standing outside the music store holding signs. Actual printed signs, family abandonment is abuse, and Danny needs his sister. And my personal favorite, shame on Emma. Other people were staring, taking pictures, whispering. I ducked into a side building and called security. Told them about the harassment. They said they'd handle it, but I could still hear Dad through the window, telling anyone who'd listen about his ungrateful daughter, about poor traumatized Danny, about family values. I texted Lisa to bring me a hoodie and sunglasses, snuck out the back way like some kind of criminal, missed my whole shift, had to call my manager with some excuse about being sick. He probably thought I was lying. Great. Now Dad was messing with my job too. The protest lasted 4 hours. Security finally made them leave when they started blocking the entrance, but the damage was done. Everyone at work had seen it, had heard the stories. I went from anonymous employee to that girl with the crazy family. Some coworkers were sympathetic. Others just wanted gossip. That night, Danny called from a number I didn't recognize. Said Dad was planning to come back tomorrow with more people, making it a daily thing until I cracked. Said he'd tried to stop him, but Dad had completely lost it. Was convinced public shame would bring me home. I couldn't do another day of that. Couldn't have my entire career start with being known as protest girl. So I did something I'd sworn I'd never do. I called Dad directly, from Lisa's phone so he'd actually answer. The conversation was short. I told him to meet me at a coffee shop near campus, alone. One chance to talk. He showed up with stepmom and Aunt Linda, of course. I almost left right then, but Danny walked in behind them, saw me, shook his head, mouthed I tried, and sat at a different table, close enough to hear, far enough to give space, still protecting me in his weird way. Dad started immediately. How could I abandon family? How could I hurt Danny? How could I be so selfish? I let him rant for 5 minutes, let him get it all out. Stepmom occasionally nodded. Aunt Linda made disapproving sounds. I just sipped my coffee and waited. When he finally stopped, I pulled out my phone, showed him the screenshots Danny had sent, the messages about forcing me home, the plans to call my work, the strategies to make my life miserable. His face went red. He turned to glare at Danny, but I wasn't done. I told him about the violin, the poison, the destroyed books, the years of terror, how he'd enabled it all, how he'd chosen Danny's trauma over my safety every single time. Stepmom looked shocked. Apparently Dad had minimized things to her. Aunt Linda tried to interrupt. I kept talking. Then I said the thing that finally shut him up, that I'd gotten into Juilliard despite him, not because of him, that every achievement he'd forced me to hide had gotten me here, that I was going to be a music teacher with or without family support, that I was done being Danny's emotional punching bag. Dad started crying. Real tears, not manipulation tears. Said he'd only wanted to help Danny heal, that he'd thought keeping us together would fix everything, that he'd failed both of us. It was the first honest thing he'd said in years. Stepmom reached for his hand. He pulled away. Danny stood up then, walked over to our table, looked Dad straight in the eye, told him to stop, that he'd tortured me enough, that it was time to let me go, that he was getting help on his own, that he didn't need me to suffer for him anymore. Dad's face crumbled. Aunt Linda tried one more guilt trip, started talking about family loyalty, about forgiveness, about moving forward together. Danny laughed. Actually laughed. Asked Linda if she'd forgive someone who poisoned her food, who destroyed her achievements, who made her life hell for 6 years. Linda shut up. I made my terms clear. No more protests, no more calls to my work or school, no more letters or interventions. I'd consider coming to Christmas if they respected boundaries. If not, I'd get a restraining order. Had already talked to a lawyer. Was ready to make it legal. Dad nodded, looked defeated. Stepmom finally spoke up, said she was proud of me, that I'd shown more strength than she ever had, that she should have protected me years ago, that she'd make sure Dad kept his promise. It was nice to hear. 6 years late, but nice. She asked if we could text sometimes. Just updates. I said maybe. Danny asked to walk me out, away from Dad and the others. Outside, he handed me an envelope, said it was from his therapy fund. Money he'd saved from his part-time job. Enough to cover what I'd lost from missing work during Dad's harassment. I tried to refuse. He insisted, said it was the least he could do. He also said he was moving out, found a group home for adults with trauma, somewhere he could get intensive therapy, somewhere he couldn't hurt anyone, somewhere Dad couldn't use him as a weapon. He'd already put down a deposit, was moving next week. I didn't know what to say. We stood there awkwardly for a minute. 6 years of pain between us, but also something new. Understanding maybe, or just exhaustion. He said he hoped I became an amazing teacher, that he'd watch from afar, that he was proud of me. Then he walked back inside inside. I haven't seen him in person since. The next few months were quiet. Dad kept his promise. No more harassment, no more guilt trips, just silence. Stepmom texted occasionally. Updates about the weather, the dog, safe topics. I responded sometimes, short messages, baby steps. Maybe we'd have a relationship someday. Maybe not. I heard about Danny through stepmom. He was doing well at the group home. Intensive therapy 3 times a week. New medication routine. Music therapy helped him express feelings without destruction. He'd even gotten a job at a record store. Said being around music helped him understand beauty instead of destroying it. Christmas came and went. I didn't go home. Spent it with Lisa's family again. They basically adopted me at that point. Her mom Sandra kept saying I needed to eat more. Her dad Tom taught me to play guitar. It was nice, normal. No one screamed about what I didn't deserve. Got a card from Dad. Simple. Just thinking of you. Love, Dad. No guilt, no manipulation, just a card. I didn't respond. Wasn't ready. Maybe wouldn't ever be. But I kept it. Stuck it in a drawer with other complicated memories. Evidence that maybe people could change. Maybe. Spring semester started at my new job. I threw myself into teaching. Elementary music classes. Young kids who still believed in magic. Earned Teacher of the Month twice. Put my award photo on Instagram. Public, proud, no more hiding achievements. Some relatives saw it, liked it. Small gestures, big meanings, progress. Got a text from an unknown number on my birthday. Just happy birthday. You deserve all good things. I knew it was Danny. Didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. Saved it, actually. Proof that the boy who'd screamed, "You don't deserve this," had finally changed his mind. Only took 6 years. Ran into my cousin Mike at the grocery store. He apologized for the group chat messages. Said he'd been wrong. That family pressure made people do stupid things. That he was proud of me for standing up for myself. We grabbed coffee. Caught up. He said Dad was in therapy now too. Finally dealing with his savior complex. The 1-year anniversary of leaving home passed quietly. I'd survived. Thrived even. Great job. Great students. Tiny apartment that was entirely mine. No broken instruments. No poisoned food. No one screaming about what I deserved. Just me building the life I'd always wanted. The life I'd hidden for so long. Lisa threw me a party. Small thing. Just close friends. But she made a toast that hit me hard. Said I was the strongest person she knew. That watching me break free had inspired her. That I'd shown her what real courage looked like. Not fighting back. Just refusing to play the game anymore. Walking away. Stepmom called that night. Said Dad wanted to apologize. Had written a letter. Asked if she could send it. I said yes. The letter came a week later. 3 pages of Dad recognizing his mistakes. How he'd failed me. How he'd enabled Danny. How he'd prioritized fixing Danny over protecting me. How sorry he was. I didn't respond to that either. Wasn't ready for forgiveness. Maybe never would be. But I read it multiple times. Kept it with the Christmas card. Evidence of change. Of growth. Of a family that had finally stopped expecting me to light myself on fire to keep others warm. It was enough for now. 2nd year of teaching started. Harder students. Longer hours. But I loved every minute. Even the difficult classes. Even the endless grading. Because it was mine. My achievement. My future. No one could smash this violin. No one could poison the success. I was finally free to deserve everything good.